Euthanasia is being offered as a form of compassion, an act of mercy. But is it really? We'll talk about that and more in this edition of Life Matters. Brian Johnston has served in many capacities while advocating for innocent lives. As the Western Director of the National Right to Life Committee, as California Commissioner on Aging, as Chairman of the California Pro-Life Council, on the board of the National Legal Center for the Medically Dependent and Disabled. And now here's our host, Brian Johnston.
Welcome back to Life Matters. I'm Brian Johnston. I'm your host, and here we talk about the real issues of life. What is the right to life? We're going to dig in deep. I have to admit, I'm going to change your thinking, and if I'm not changing your thinking, then you better not listen to this program, because our culture wants to put you to sleep. There's an analogy that's often used about frogs in water. Don't just throw a frog into boiling water. They'll jump out. You slowly raise the heat. So I will be using that analogy again today, but I want to tell you something. It's completely inadequate because itself makes you think that this is about frogs. What if this was about actual human beings? Would you care more? Literally killing them. Now, is it boiling them to death? No, how about just euthanizing them? Up front, we're talking about euthanizing them, but your culture has been slowly warming up to that. They've used phrases like medical aid in dying, phrases like assisted suicide. Oh, they want to die. It's compassion. You're familiar with some of that language because you're living in this society. That's the heat that's being turned up. But what we're talking about is very straightforward. Intentional medical killing. Killing someone for an ostensibly good reason. Now, if you're familiar with language and how we form language, English loves to use phrases from other cultures, and they'll even coin new ones. And the word euthanasia, that's from the Greek. But the Greeks didn't use that language. Euthanasia is a neologism. It's a new coining. And it means good, death. Eu is good. Thanatos is death. It's a good death. We're killing for good reasons. It's euthanasia. But many of us, because we're familiar with history, and it hasn't been terribly long, since this was being done in other countries, in Germany and elsewhere. So euthanasia can alarm many Americans, and Americans want to do what they feel, what they get to decide, because we're Americans. We're free to do whatever we want. And so if you want to commit suicide, well, that's your decision. We'll just assist you. But in assisted suicide, there's things that you don't know. And so language is used. We're going to talk about that language. We're going to end by talking about what you have to do, aside from waking up, because language has been used to lull you to sleep, to lull you into inactivity. As the water comes to a boil, that you simply are used to it, and don't complain too loudly. That's happening right now. And we're going to talk about California, but you need to know something. Those of you who listen to Life Matters know that a lot of stuff goes on in California, but it's really geared at coming to you. The assisted suicide lobby wants to legalize assisted suicide in your state, in your nation. There are people listening right now. There are people listening right now in other countries through shortwave. And the assisted suicide lobby wants your state to embrace assisted suicide because it sounds nice. Their goal then is to expand it later. We're going to talk today about California Bill SB 1196. And SB 1196 now throws back the real desires and is an admission that the initial legalizing of assisted suicide is just to make it more acceptable. They now want to expand it. They are coming to your state to do exactly the same. You must understand, when I talk about how you boil frogs, that's a very colorful illustration. But you may not think it's that serious because it's only frogs. That actually might lull you into thinking, well, you're just talking about how frogs are killed. No, we're talking literally here about human beings are killed via euthanasia. So when we come back, we'll talk about their methods, what SB 1196 here in California is doing, but it's what the entire pro-death lobby is doing across the nation and around the world. And if you're not prepared for it, you will be a victim, your loved ones will be a victim. Medicine is being used to intentionally kill those who at one time they swore only to care for. The Hippocratic Oath was thrown out the window, and without that Hippocratic Oath, I have to tell you, you can't trust your doctor. We're going to tell you how you can prepare for this, how to prepare your family, your loved ones, and the culture. When we come back, we're talking about assisted suicide and its expansion everywhere. So we'll talk about that in just a moment.
Life Matters continues after this.
I want to remind you of my book, Evil Twins, Roe and Doe, How the Supreme Court Unleashed Medical Killing. Available on Amazon and wherever fine books are sold. I recommend getting the Kindle version because there's links to all the documenting evidence. This isn't because I say it. This is actually what reality is. Every pro-life and even pro-abortion legal expert admits Roe v. Wade makes no sense. It's actually Doe v. Bolton that unleashed doctors to kill a baby at any time whenever they wanted. You need to find out those facts, and they're documented. And the fact is we're not addressing the reality of legalized abortion. We want to help you understand this battle right now. You can get the audio version online. Evil Twins, Roe and Doe, How the Supreme Court Unleashed Medical Killing. You're going to come away from the book with a new understanding of what this battle is actually about.
And now back to more Life Matters with Brian Johnston.
Okay, welcome back. We're talking about intentional medical killing, which is sometimes called euthanasia, meaning meaning good, as in eulogy. Those are good words that are said in a eulogy. Euphoria, it's a good feeling. Euthanasia, well, that's a good death. And that's expanding, and the people who want to use it want to kill people that they think should be killed. And no other consideration is given other than their desire to assert, well, this person should be killed. It's a good death. So the institutionalization of intentional medical killing has happened in other cultures, and my friends, it is happening here in your culture. If you listen to Life Matters, I'll refer you back. We do talk about this a lot. A lot of you have read my book, Death as a Salesman, What's Wrong with Assisted Suicide, or my other book on what really happened in Roe v. Wade and Doe v. Bolton, The Evil Twins, Roe and Doe, How the Supreme Court Unleashed Medical Killing. And that was through Doe v. Bolton. Many people think it was all about babies and diapers and helping, and those are good things to do. But no, it legalized and instructed doctors to be the killers. That's how abortion was going to be legalized. Doctors are now killers under Doe versus Bolton. That's in my book, Evil Twins, Roe and Doe. Okay, so we're going in depth. Many of you who are listeners know I do talk about this, and I keep pounding it home. Do you know why? People are falling asleep. The water is getting gently warm. If you ever sat in a hot tub, in a hot bath, you'll relax. That's what happens to the frogs, and that's what's happened to your culture. So we want to motivate you. We're going to give you things to intervene. People don't like intervening. I don't want to get involved. We're going to show you how to tastefully get involved, how to tastefully raise this issue, how to make sure that your church is aware of this and are educated, how to make sure your doctor is looking at his own profession or her own profession. We're going to talk to you about how to deal with legislators because they make laws. And you know what laws are? Laws are ideas that are enforced. So you better make sure you've got the right ideas out there. You better be willing to bring clarity. And so what's happened with the assisted suicide movement is they want to get the camel's nose under the tent. In other words, they just want the generic idea that, it's a good idea for doctors to kill sometimes. And so they pass those laws. And then what they do is they come back and they change them. It's already been accepted by people. The water is all pretty high. If doctors are killing, for mercy, that's okay, isn't it? If doctors are already killing, what's the matter with expanding it? What's the matter with this blessing being offered to more people? And that is what Senate Bill 1196 by Senator Blakespear here in California, it does exactly that. But it does several things. Here's some of the criteria. The criteria is removed. Remember, they used to say, and those who follow our program, again, if you listen to my podcast, just a couple in the last year, episode 314, episode 310, we go into Canada and the incredible things happening in wonderful Canada. The Canadians wouldn't hurt a fly. Yeah, well, they're killing people that have got nothing wrong with them. Even children. Go back to episode 258. We go into great depth as to what changing the law regarding protecting vulnerable, innocent patients. Once you start doing that, you have thrown wide the door to institutionalized, intentional medical killing. And you have to be aware of that. So this particular bill, we have assisted suicide legalized here in California. This particular bill said, well, it's only if someone has 6 months or less to live. And of course, we said at the time, wait a second, any honest doctor will tell you a 6-month prognosis, that's hard. That's hard. I've been at many deathbeds. Some of you know my background. And I have been at deathbeds where they say, well, this person's going to die soon. There are signs of imminent death. We're not going to go into that right now. But 6 months is not one of them. They don't come 6 months ahead of time. You can be given a diagnosis, but there are treatments. And I'll take a moment right now to praise the right to try. A lot of people are talking about the right to die if you're given a cancer diagnosis. But they're not talking about the right to try. I know people who have taken treatments that the pharmaceutical company doesn't agree with, that the AMA says, well, we don't really approve of that. And yet these treatments have actually been extraordinary, but they're suppressed. They're not talked about openly, and if you do talk about them, oh, well, you're not obeying. You must do what the pharmaceutical company says. You must do what the AMA instructs. You must do what the Center for Disease Control and everything that the government has set up. They're going to tell you how to live, and if you're to die, well, then we'll make it easy. So I believe in the right to try. As we talk about these serious circumstances, I know pain management experts. If you or a loved one are in pain, intractable pain, and the doctor isn't dealing with it, the answer is simple. It's 3 words. It's not kill the patient. It's get another doctor. I thank Dr. Jack Wilkie for that one. But the fact is pain management is available for even the most difficult of cancers. And now I want to say the right to try underscores there are treatments that do direct themselves to cancers. Done other episodes on that. We won't talk about that here. We're talking about Senate Bill 1196 in California. And Senate Bill 1196 now expands on assisted suicide. Now there's no longer a need for 6 months. Now they're changing the wording. They use adjectives. They use language. Language is used to put you to sleep, to lull your mind so you don't see and realize what's really being said. They're changing the criteria from 6 months to this model. If there's a grievous and irremediable medical condition. Now, those are interesting adjectives. They sound bad, and therefore that's what's used in Canada now. But the fact is how is that defined? There's no time limit, and there's no terminal illness requirement. You don't have to be terminally ill for doctors to simply kill you. Well, that's a change. That's worth noting. That's a very specific issue. But that's being fogged over in the name of feelings and if someone's suffering. Let's deal with the suffering. You don't kill people just because of suffering. You do with lower creatures. You do with dogs. I've given this analogy. I have a dog, and that dog snuck into the kitchen. I was washing dishes. That dog got in my way. I had to get him out of the kitchen. But because I love him, I was very appropriate and took him back outside and closed the screen door. However, a mosquito, whom I do not regard as highly as a dog, a mosquito came in, and you know what I did? I killed that mosquito right now because we have a hierarchy of who should we care for. And if you say, oh, well, we're nicer to puppy dogs. No, we're not nicer to puppy dogs when you euthanize them. We're saying that's a lower form of life. Human beings. We're not mere animals. You don't put down human beings because they're suffering, because they have a serious and grievous, irremediable medical condition. So the challenge is great with language, but this is on us right now. It is in California. It also removes, this new bill, SB 1196, removes the residency requirement. Up until now, you could only do this if indeed you lived in California. It's the laws of California. But now they're advertising they want to have tourists, just as they have with abortion in California. Well, your state wants to protect babies and moms with your pro-life laws. Come to California. Gavin Newsom will pay for you to travel and have a tourist abortion in California. And that's what they want to do with euthanasia. They want to have people come here, even though your doctor may know, gosh, Jim is actually, he's got this illness, but he's really just seriously depressed, and I want him to take this medicine for his depression. He'll handle this well if he handles his depression. No, your depression is, I just want to kill myself. I'm going to California, and you won't have a banjo on your knee. You're going there because they'll kill you there. So tourist suicides are being prepped for California through SB 1196. And again, we're talking about California. This is what they do everywhere. Once the camel's nose is under the tent, the camel will overturn your tent. So assisted suicide laws are passed as the camel's nose for other forms of euthanasia. Voluntary euthanasia is still euthanasia. Just because somebody says, oh, go ahead and kill me, that doesn't mean it's not euthanasia. If you're familiar, I think one of the greatest psychiatrists that I'm familiar with is Dr. Viktor Frankl. He was an Austrian Jewish psychiatrist, which means he was an MD in addition to his psychiatric training. That's what psychiatry means, as opposed to psychology. He was imprisoned by the Nazis. He wrote an amazing book called Man's Search for Meaning. And one of the points that Viktor Frankl makes is that many in the camp, they knew if you went to the infirmary, your treatment would end with you going up the smokestack. They knew that these were death camps, but they called them work camps. Work will make you free. In German, over the camp, it says, Arbeit macht frei. Work will make you free. We're freeing you. Come work at our work camp. No, they were euthanasia camps for killing. But in the meantime, they'd get work out of them. So this is what happened, is that he was concerned as a psychiatrist. He saw many in the death camps who were so overwhelmed and depressed, and their lives had lost meaning. Once their lives had lost meaning, that depression made them suicidal. And they would willingly, and he says this, they willingly marched dejectedly to their deaths. They knew the infirmary had an oven attached to it. They knew what it meant. They smelled the smoke from the oven. They understood, but there was no meaning to their life. So he wrote the book, Man's Search for Meaning. I highly recommend that. That's Viktor Frankl, an excellent, excellent writer. And if you want to understand more about the strange psyche of human beings and how they can be manipulated if they lose their sense of purpose, read Man's Search for Meaning, Viktor Frankl. And that principle is being used right now to kill people. Some are in nursing homes. Some are in other institutions where doctors will say, well, we can free this bed. We can take care of this, and it's be comfortable. Oh, yeah, we want to do this for your grandma. They'll get you to agree because your thinking has been fogged. You have slowly been induced into this culture of death. So be ready for this wherever you are in the world, not just in California. We'll talk about that and more when we come back.
Life Matters continues after this.
Well, hi. I just wanted to thank you for joining me. You know, I have good friends, children, young adults, and adults that have Down syndrome. And they are so loved. Their parents love them so much because they're the happiest people you'd ever want to know. I really love them. I'm going to tell you something, though, that's rather frightening. The government of France has now prohibited showing positive images of Down syndrome children and letting parents know how lovable they are. That's an actual law in France. Here in the U.S., 80-some-odd% of Down syndrome kids are killed by abortion before they're born. If you'd like to help out, you can go to the National Down Syndrome Society, ndss.org. We really are in a battle of ideas, and lives really are at stake.
And now back to more Life Matters with Brian Johnston.
We're back, and you're listening to Life Matters. I'm going to give a few things of what you need to do. As I said, there is no waiting period now. That's another thing they've removed. When they initially brought assisted suicide, they said, well, there has to be a 48-hour wait between the first request, depressed request, because a request for suicide is the number one indicator of depression. But there has to be 48 hours. And if they ask again, well, then you can kill them under the existing proposal they put in. Well, that's removed now. You can just get instant death. Just the same day. You want to die? Good deal. This bill also allows IVs to be used. That's right, intravenous poisoning as they lay in the bed. This bill now also allows those with dementia, as if someone with dementia could request assisted suicide. But yep, it removes the dementia issue. Finally, this bill has removed the sunset clause. Many laws are passed and they're said that, well, it'll just be for a while. We'll see how it works. No, this bill says it's forever. This will be the law in California forever. Very serious changes. By the way, the fact is they already know this. They already know when they pass these soft assisted suicide laws and they're allowing doctors who really care for people, they're allowing doctors to kill patients. The fact is the reporting requirements, because they keep track of this, the government's involved, so they keep track. There's one thing they don't tell you. There's no penalty for failure to report your assisted suicide. You're doing it because you're a doctor. You're licensed to do that now. Medical killing is licensed. But if you fail to fill out the proper forms, there's no penalty. And so for many doctors, if they do get caught doing that and somebody says, well, wait a second, did you fill out the proper forms? Oh, you know what? It's a hard job being a doctor. I didn't fill out that form. Oh, okay, well, next time fill out a form. So you may think there's good reason to do this, but people are being killed right now without any reason needed. And the fact is, in these reports, in most states, when they initially bring in assisted suicide, they don't list the cause of death as being poisoned. They list the cause of death as to whatever was this illness they had. Oh, it was heart disease. Oh, it was cancer. And they put that in the form. So they make it sound like, oh, we're not killing them. It's the cancer killing them. No, you killed them because they had cancer and they were depressed. So even the paperwork they're using now is to fog this issue. Please don't tolerate assisted suicide laws being introduced in your state. If doctors are free to kill, there's no way to put up the boundaries to protect that practice. And it's being demonstrated now in California. If you're in a state that has assisted suicide, there will be an introduction of these types of laws. You must be willing to speak up. Human involvement is what's needed, not killing. So this is a very important issue. The emotions of death and dying are being twisted. In your state and locality, this is being introduced. The arguments are being used. If you really love someone, you're going to make sure that you let them go. They're just going to be happier. And that's to authorize killing them. Please understand, please make sure that you talk to your legislators here in California, talk to your state senator. We have to stop this now, but great evil is being done. You're not going to be successful talking to the governor. Do you know that Governor Newsom had killed his mother and bragged about killing his mother through assisted suicide before it was ever legal in California? So, of course, he was loving his mom as he killed her. So our governor will likely sign this bill. Please talk to your state senator if you're in California and your state assembly member. But I'm going to go further. You need to learn how to talk to your doctor about this debate. The medical profession has been transmogrified. That's a big word. But what it means is changed into a monster. Doctors no longer have the ethical guidelines. that made them an honorable profession. So your doctor has to be reminded of the meaning and significance of why that oath was there. You have to help equip them. You can go to some of the material I have. Again, I've written several books on this. Death as a Salesman, What's Wrong with Assisted Suicide, available on Amazon, wherever fine books are sold. But also Evil Twins, Roe and Doe, How the Supreme Court Unleashed Medical Killing. But I want to recommend another entity, the Euthanasia Prevention Coalition. I'm a supportive member, and you'll enjoy their materials. They want to equip you too. They do what we're talking about. They equip people to understand that euthanasia and assisted suicide, whatever, again, the popular name right now, the name of choice, the de rigueur acceptable notion is MAID, medical aid in dying. That's all it is. It's medical aid. Well, Euthanasia Prevention Coalition, go to epcc.ca for Canada. It'll teach you how to talk to your doctor. It'll give you forms to fill out, advance directives that presume benefit, not harm for the patient. Make sure that you're able to talk to your church. Make sure you are reading the good ones that say, don't kill these people. That's not being compassionate. So make sure that you're equipped for this battle. This is probably the most real battle you'll ever see. This isn't about frogs. And when I use the analogy of frogs, it's actually a disservice to you because frogs are animals. We're talking about intentionally raising the heat, getting people used to being euthanized. That is what's happening right now. It's not the analogy. It's the reality of killing innocent human beings. It's happening now. If there's a nursing home in your neighborhood, a hospital in your neighborhood, the doctors in California are licensed to kill them. There's very little scrutiny afterwards. They just call the morgue. There's very little scrutiny, I know. I've seen people leave nursing homes that I had talked to the day before, and up they go, covered in sheet. Happens all the time. Just get used to it. Just get used to the boiling water. We're not talking about frogs, my friend. We're talking about you. We're talking about your society. This is what? The absolute greatest evil. As we said about Nazi Germany, never again. And it wasn't just crimes against Jews. They were tried for crimes against humanity. And that is what we're talking about. Thanks, my friends, for listening. Be ready for this battle. Smile as you do this. Be happy, because it's going to help people understand if you will happily explain to them where they're wrong. If perchance they can come to their senses, you need to explain to them the myths that have been wrapped in their mind by which the devil has taken them captive to do his will. You need to explain it to them. So be nice about it, but make sure you do explain what euthanasia is all about. Thanks for listening.
Learn more about everything in today's show online at lifematters.life. Life Matters is a production of the California Pro-Life Council.